This video is sponsored by Telison. So how do you film authentic moments without killing the vibe? You hire a crew. But if you don't have a budget, there is another option. Today I'm going to show you how I've been capturing real moments without getting in the way.
Thank you, Grandma.
So over the last year of vlogging, what I've learned is that there is a clear distinction between authentic and aesthetic. It's not so much that you're not trying to do both at the same time. It's just that sometimes you often have to sacrifice the aesthetic in order to get something that's a little bit more authentic. And today I'm going to show you how I've been able to do my best version of capturing both. Now, step one is to simply have multiple cameras. There's just no way to avoid it, because otherwise you are going to find yourself having to repeat the same actions over and over and over again, which will probably get you a more aesthetic shot, but it's obviously going to become less and less authentic every time you do it. So the first step is to just know that you plan on filming, so that way you can set up the cameras in advance. In order to capture the sequence at the beginning, I just set up the cameras before Christmas morning. This is mostly captured live, but there are a few tweaks we'll talk about a little bit down the line, but let's get into exactly what I did. Now, first of all, I used about 4 cameras. I have one camera capturing the wide, which is going to drive all of our audio. Then I have a reverse camera that's on the other side of the tree. And then I have a shot that's more of a mid, that's just capturing more of the intimate details of the sequence as it happens. Now, when you're capturing things this way, obviously you're not going to capture everything because it's just you. Like, you're living it and you're in it and you're not a crew. So you're going to sacrifice, right? You're just not going to get as many aesthetic moments as possible, but you are going to capture them authentically for the most part. Now, these cameras are obviously a little bit wider than they would be if someone was physically operating them, but once we start the sequence, I just kind of subtly move the camera as I go along. I'm just kind of pointing in a direction, hoping I capture something. It's more of a spray and pray than, really sitting there and establishing things. And, I'm more focused on living it than I am really getting the best image possible. But it also works because of what I'm capturing. I think when you're capturing something that's a little bit more meaningful, it doesn't matter if the shot's not perfect and you just are more happy that you have something, even if it's not that perfectly well-lit image that you probably would have chosen. Now, it might take a while to get the shot. So let me introduce you to the magnetic quick-release charging adapter from Telison. And let me show you how it makes things just a little bit easier. Now, in order to do this, you are absolutely going to need constant power, and that's where the sponsor of this video, Telison, comes into play. Now, I use the DJI Nano, and it has 2 separate components. You have a vision dock, and you have the camera here on top. And unfortunately, these cameras were designed where there is only one USB charging port. And in order to capture sequences live as they happen, the cameras are going to have to kind of be established and just left for a while until it's time to actually capture something, which means you're constantly draining the battery. And with the DJI Nano having limited battery life, this would become a bit of a challenge. But Telson designed this USB-C dock, which allows the camera to have its own charging port. That way I can keep this camera plugged up and the vision dock isn't drawing any battery because I haven't turned it on. So you can grab a USB battery bank, plug up this camera, and keep it on charge until it's time to be used. One thing I will note, if you're using a DJI mic, plugging the vision dock into the camera will actually prevent you from being able to trigger the recording. So you'll have to, at that point, use the DJI Mimo app, which is a free app, which I'm sure you're aware of. Very small trade-off in order to have both of your devices fully charged at all times. I want to thank Telson for making it possible for me to capture authentic moments as they happen. And I also want to thank Telson for sponsoring a giveaway for one of these USB-C docks. So if you own a DJI Nano and you would like to win one of these USB-C docks, I'm going to need you to go ahead and give this video a like. Put Telson in the comment section below and let us know how you're going to use this device to be able to capture more authentic content of your own. Now, one of the most important pieces in order to make this thing work is a remote trigger. Why? Because you're leaving your camera in a position that you probably can't reach, and you're not always going to want that shot rolling. So being able to turn off the camera whenever it's not something that you probably need to capture or whenever there's a down moment is incredibly important. With the DJI Nano, I use the DJI Mic Mini, which allows me to simply remote fire the camera using the actual microphone. And with my Sony ZV-E10, I'm using this Eidolon remote trigger so that I can fire the camera when I'm at a distance. Could you do this by physically walking over to all the cameras? Sure, but this is much more convenient, and it's what allows me to stay in the moment. Like, I don't have to interrupt the moment in order to be the guy to turn on the cameras. And that little difference is the difference between authentic and aesthetic. Now, I mentioned constant power with the Nano, but I also use a power adapter with my Sony ZV-E10. So that camera is not relying on a battery, so I'm not having to get up and change it because it died. So if you want to capture something in the moment, get you some constant power, grab you some remotes, and then set it and forget it. Now, as the great American folk singer Frederick Durst once said, keep rolling, 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 yeah. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. What? See, in order to capture authentic moments, you're gonna have to let the thing breathe. Like, you're not gonna be sitting there turning on and off the camera every single time you think you got a good shot. You're just gonna let it play. And that's how I've captured some of my best stuff. One of my favorite moments that I captured vlogging was just a simple moment between me and my son where we were getting ready for bed and he came over and gave me a hug. I didn't plan to put that in the video. I wasn't looking for that moment, but we had set up the camera a while ago, and at that point it was just rolling. And it wasn't until I got into the edit that I saw it and I realized this is what this moment needed. So I highly suggest that you don't film this like it's a bar mitzvah or a wedding. You just film it like it's a nature documentary. Press record, you walk away, and you make sure you have plenty of media available to be able to swap out cards and just experience it. When I decided to document my life authentically, I had to make a decision. How much of it is going to be recreations? How much of it is going to be just acting? And how much of it is going to be real? And the more I've created, the more I realize the moments that mean the most, that look the best, that are the most impactful are the ones that are just real. They just happen the way they happen. And I only captured it because the camera was simply rolling. And the beauty of this is because we're using wireless microphones, we're also picking up ambient sounds, we're picking up live audio, and we're capturing actual conversations as they happen. Documenting authentically feels different because it is. Now, documenting authentically and not killing the vibe really comes down to how much of it is stopping what's happening and turning it into a moment to turn on the camera versus it happening completely organically. And one of the best ways for me to do that is simply using my dad cam. And this $58 camera has completely changed everything because it's just fun. Like, this is the camera that I give my son, and we go somewhere and I'm like, hey, spray and pray, get whatever you want, have fun. I'm not worried about media or battery or any of that because very small file sizes. It looks very grungy. No one bothers us with this thing. Like, if I take this to a game, no one's worried I'm shooting a professional documentary or anything like that. It just is the camera that captures the moment as it happens. But the same thing can be said for your phone. Like, when I'm capturing live moments, they'll be vertical, they'll be landscape. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes I'm just using photos. But whatever it was that I captured in the moment, I use that because that's what makes it more authentic. But it's also what makes it that much more fun because those images are the most fun to capture. See, there's a clear distinction because sometimes I'm filming and I have to go back and add inserts in or add POVs or add something to fill out a story. And when that happens, the vibe is completely different. It's me now coming in and setting a light in order to make sure something's properly exposed. It's me doing an action and then doing it again in order to make sure I capture it and making sure the emotion feels right in order to convey the story properly. It's a bit of a drag. Like, I do it because it's necessary for what I want to create, but if I could document it all as it happened, that would be ideal. Like, I wish I had a crew to follow me around and capture this stuff, but since I don't, this is the next best thing. If you can make documenting fun, then everybody is in on it. It's not just one person being a director and everyone else being actors in a movie that they're really not interested in being in. You're probably always capturing stuff, but we tend to say, oh, well, I'm creating this project, I'm only going to use footage from this camera, instead of the things that are probably a little bit more meaningful. Because when you're not making sure everything's perfect and manicured, you're going to capture things that are a little bit more authentic. Now, that's all my general philosophy on how to capture authentic moments without killing the vibe, but I will throw in this bonus tip because this is probably the most important thing. Ask for forgiveness, not for permission. The best moments don't come when we ask, they only come because I don't. Like, I film it and then I run it by you after the fact and I say, hey, this is what I captured. How do you feel about this going out? And there are a bunch of uncomfortable moments that we don't put out. And then there are ones that we agree, add, and they make the story a little bit more interesting and they make it better, and it feels good for us to express everything as it happened. And that component is why you should simply go for it And then respectfully reach out to your friends or family or whoever you're with and say, hey, how do you feel about this? If you ask them, they're probably just going to recoil and say no, because, like, yeah, why would I want you to put that embarrassing thing out about me? Until they see it inside of an entire piece. And I think when you have that mentality, you aren't just expressing care for your art, but also the people that it affects. Now, after you capture your wide, your mids, and your close-ups of everything, then I like to go back behind the scene and film inserts. Now, the cool thing about these inserts is that they don't even have to be filmed at the same time. Take a look at this scene where we're having this Nerf gun fight. The sequence looks like it was shot all at the same time, but if you really pay attention, you'll notice, one, we shot this twice. One time we have one set of clothing on, the second time we have different clothes on, which is really cool because it gave me the opportunity to reposition the cameras, then go back and add this particular POV shot of us with the Nerf guns, and it gave me time to go back and get inserts. One thing to note about this sequence is that this was shot when I only had one camera, so there was no other way for me to get multiple perspectives because I only had one camera at the time. But whenever you think you don't have more than one camera, just remember you probably still have your phone or even an old phone. So the more the merrier. But I also went back and filmed this insert. I originally shot this sequence. I had the camera sitting here behind this table as I walked to pick up the Nerf gun. And then I went back and filmed an insert where I just showed my hand grabbing the gun. This was shot later on in that evening. I still had the same clothes on, but it wasn't in that actual moment. But when you watch the sequence, you cannot tell. And that is one of the tricks that you can use when you're capturing things authentically to still get those really nice close-ups. Your mind is probably thinking, well, how do you get all this stuff as it happens? Well, you don't. You capture the wide, you capture the actions, and then you go back and fill in the gaps after the fact. So once again, I want to thank Telison for sponsoring this video. If you're interested in winning this USB-C dock, make sure you put Telison and what you're going to use the Nano USB-C dock for. If you have any other questions, put them in the comment section below. And if you found any value in this video, make sure you give it a like, and I will see you in the next one.